And for today's Chumash, we are holding today's Tuesday. Today's the third day of the Parshas Shoftim. And again, short Chumash today. Very interesting. It's going to talk about the gifts that go to the Levi and the Kohen. And we're going to sum up the total sum of gifts that go to the Kohen. And there's going to be an interesting Rashi today that will describe to us why the Kohanim get those specific gifts. There's always a reason to things. So at least some of the reasons behind the fact that the Kohanim get very specific gifts that they get. Let's see inside. Verse 1. The Kohanim who are from the tribe of Levi, right? Because the Kohanim and Levi are really one. The Kohanim come from the tribe of Levi. And the entire tribe of Levi, and Rashi says very interesting here, we're actually including the Levi that has a blemish. Now you would think that the Levi that's wounded, that has a blemish, cannot serve in the Beis HaMikdash, and therefore should not be allowed to receive the gifts that all the Levites are receiving. And Rashi tells you, no, that's what the Torah says, Kol Shevet Levi. All the people from the tribe of Levi don't have Chelek V'Nachal Yisrael. They don't get real estate. They don't get property. And I'm going to explain to you how Rashi breaks it down. What don't they get? And therefore, in Yisrael, Isheh Hashem V'Nachlos Yechelun. Hashem is the fire, the offerings, basically, meaning the fire, the sacrifices that go to Hashem. That is the Levi's rightful inheritance. So it doesn't that. So let's go through. Let's break down this verse according to Rashi and see what he means. So the whole Shevet Levi, entire tribe of Levi, doesn't get real estate, doesn't get property. Even if he's a blemished Levi and he cannot serve in the temple, it doesn't matter. He does not enjoy participation in the property and inheritance, and therefore he needs to be supported by the community. And what does he not get? So Rashi says, let's break it down. He doesn't get a portion. A portion means spoils, the spoils of war, I guess. Maybe they're not the soldiers who go to war and they don't split the booty that they bring back, the spoils of war. They do not split it with the tribe of Levi. So they're out. They don't get any of those benefits. V'nachla, inheritance. They don't get any land. There's no all the other tribes get these huge swaths of land. Levi doesn't get it. So what does the Levi get? The Levi gets the fire of Hashem, meaning the sacrifices that belong. The holy sacrifice of the temple do go to, I guess, the Kohanim. Okay, the Kohanim will get the Holy of Holies, certain sacrifices, and also there are other percentages that the Kohen and Levi will get. Some property, some of the 10% or the 2% that go out of the tithes, the truma, the Kohanic percentage, and the meiser, the 10% that the Levi will get, and that is what he's supposed to live off and not get any real estate within the thing. But verse 2, he should not have any inheritance among the Jewish people. Any land, any possession of land, he should not get among his brothers. Hashem unachlasai, God is his inheritance. Kasher dibra loi, as Hashem already spoke, as Rashi says, we said it earlier verse, it's not the first time God's mentioning this. Hashem has said earlier that Hashem is his inheritance, Hashem is his portion, and therefore he needs to live off percentages from the rest of the Jewish people. Just to remind you guys, can you guys hear me now? Yes? Good. Sorry, I disappeared and then I came back. Okay, I believe it's still recording. Okay, so Menachla, the Levi is not allowed to have any portion, verse 2, or inheritance among the Jewish people because Hashem is his portion and Hashem is his inheritance. Now there is a long, interesting Rashi here, and Rashi goes into a discussion about. I'm just going to share with you the points, the main points. It's a little complex, but he's going to share with you two fascinating points of history. One is that the Jews conquered the nations, that there was 5 nations in the mainland of Israel, on the western side of Israel, and 2 nations on the eastern side of Israel. So when the Jews came, right, they started conquering land, and Reuben and Gad, they got those whole swaths of land on the eastern side of the Jordan River, and also half of Manasseh. They conquered from 2 countries, and in Israel proper, they conquered 5 countries. That's one way to understand. Rashi's trying to understand the Medrash, the Sifri, a Medrash about the reference here to what the Jews are inheriting. But then there's another very interesting way that Rashi brings it down, and that is that he heard from a great scholar who is called Rabbi Kolonimus, that Yoshua and Moshe together conquered the land of 5 tribes. Just tells you a little bit of history, which we never really mentioned in the rest of our class. Moshe conquered, he says, 2.5 tribes. I guess the eastern side of the Jordan River, or I should say, they settled on the eastern side of the Jordan River, Ruvain, Gad, and half of Manasseh. Moses himself allocated and was there to settle 2.5 tribes, Reuben, Gad, and half of Manasseh, their property on the eastern side of the Jordan River. Joshua then took over, went into Israel, and settled another 2.5 tribes in Israel proper. And then he passes away. And the last remaining 7 tribes kind of had to figure it out on their own. Yoshua was not there to finish the conquering and the allocating of the area. That was something that came along later on. Not getting it, Rashi's trying to decipher the words of the Medrash, of the Sifri. We're not getting into that now, but just a fascinating point. Moses did 2.5, Yeshua did 2.5, and 7 were left later on. And the Levite, back to our verse, the Levi has none of that. It doesn't have any of that location, and therefore, not of the 2, not of the 5, not even of the 3 that when Mashiach will come, there'll be another 3. So none of that the Levi gets, and therefore we need to support them with the ways that the Torah is saying it. And what do they get? And this is the law for the Kohanim. What does the Kohanim get? Me'esam, this is the standard gifts that we're supposed to, when Mashiach comes, we will give the Kohanim. Me'esam from the nation, from any of their sacrifices, or the shlamim at least, not the burnt offerings, obviously, but the sacrifices that there is meat left over to partake. Im shar, im seh, if it's an ox or a sheep. Nasan la kohen, you'll give to the kohen. Hazoroya, you'll give him the foreleg. V'halachayim, and the cheeks, the jaw. V'hakeva, and the maw. I guess that's the udder. So again, what do we mean exactly? The foreleg. Rashi says it's from the knee as it goes up to where the leg starts getting wider, from the knee to where the leg goes up. That is a part of the animal's leg that the kohen gets. Okay, number 1. Number 2, kohen gets the cheeks, the jaw and the cheeks. And Rashi says the tongue, that the tongue goes to the kohen from the sacrifice. The jaw and the cheeks and the tongue, that all goes to the kohen. And finally, the l'chaim, I guess it's like the maw, part of the stomach of the animal, goes to the kohen. And Rashi says, why is that? That's very interesting. How come the kohen got those, out of the whole parts of the sacrifice of the animal? Why does he get a part of the foreleg? Why does he get part of the cheek, the tongue, the mouth? And why does he get part of the maw? And Rashi says, very interesting. It goes back to a story with a kohen who saved the Jewish people. We know that there was a story of Zimri, the prince of the tribe of Shimon, who was cohabiting with the Midianite princess. And it was Pinchas, who was a kohen, who became a kohen, who saved the Jewish people by using his, first of all, he used his arm to throw the spear into the person, earning for the Kohanim from then on to have the arm of the animal, the foreleg of the animal, considered representing the arm that Pinchas used in order to kill the Midianite princess together with the prince of the tribe of Shimon, with Zimri. Then he also davened to Hashem, and therefore the Kohanim will get the tongue, the cheeks, the whole mouth part, because he made a prayer to Hashem would save the Jewish people. And where did the spear go through? Through the belly, through the uterus, through the stomach, where they were sinning. And that is why the Kohanim fascinatingly got these specific gifts, because then Hashem stopped the plague, which was about to ravish and destroy the Jewish people because of this act. And therefore, referencing, very interesting, that act, the Kohanim will then merit to have those specific parts of all the sacrifices. Fascinating Rashi. Verse number 4. What else does the Kohen get? Well, not just the a select part of the. He's not just walking away with the leg and those parts of the animal. The tongue, I guess, tongue is pretty good, but not just those parts of the animal. Reishis digancha, he will also get the first of the grain. Tiroshcha, and the wine, the first of the wine, the grapes, the yitzaracha, and the first of the oil, the olives. Bereshis gaze, on top of that, the first of the shearing of the sheep. Taincha titain law, you should give to him. So whether you work in any of those fields, and you have that going on, you're either dealing with grapes, or you're dealing with grain, or you're dealing with olives, or you're dealing with wool, as these were standard ways of business of people who were very occupied with these different kinds of things. Any of those things, you have to give to the kohen. Now, the question that the Torah doesn't answer is how much do you have to give to the kohen? How much wool? How much grain? How much wine? Now, what percentage goes to the kohen? We were very clear with the Levi that the Levi gets 10%. The Torah actually, very interesting, does not tell us. So the rabbis later on stood and said, well, what is the amount? And they said either 1/60th or 1/50th or 1/40th. If you want to be cheap, the amount, and they find a verse that talks about in the verse of Yecheskel, that talks about donating 1/60th, and they're saying, look, should not be less. We're going to estimate that even though the Torah doesn't say an actual amount, how much you have to give a kohen of these above items, you must give him at least minimum a 60th. You want to be a medium guy, give him a 50th. You want to be a good guy, give him a 40th of all the things that grow. It's very interesting. So, and the same thing will go for wool. You want to give him 1/60th of all the wool that you shared, and that is that these are some of the fascinating chachamim who took these laws, which did not numerate the amounts, and the Torah kind of left it open to you. Depending on you, it doesn't have to be this amount. It's up to you what kind of measurements you want to give of these above items. Why does the kohen get it? Hashem, verse 5, because Hashem chose him from all the tribes. Lami, the shar is to stand up and to serve b'shem Hashem, the name of God, who ubanav kalayamim, him and his sons, all the days of their life. So also it says they have to do it standing. From here we see that all the service in the temple had to be done in a way of standing. Interesting Rashi here. And that is the end of today's Chumash. So we actually learn a major part of the source of today's Chumash is what are the correct requirements and gifts that need to go to the kohen. Any questions or comments on today's Chumash? No? Everybody good? Okay. So that's the deal with we learned from today's Chumash, again, very important Chumash, you learn about what percentage the